Dan, he's got a podcast, cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. I am your host, Dan Bublitz Jr., and with me, as always, is my trusted wingman, co-host, and producer, Josh Shirley. How are you doing tonight?
Dude, I'm feeling good, man. I am feeling good in the safety of my own home, away from the lady that yelled at me during my set Saturday night in St. Joseph, Missouri.
You got yelled at. What'd you get yelled at for?
I was telling a story about a date that I had. It's just one of my jokes, and it's about a girl named Diane. And she's like, hey. And at first I hear it, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's how she coughs or sneezes or whatever. And I keep going. And then I kind of take a drink of water after that part is over, and then she says, "Excuse me, sir," and I'm like, "Okay, she's definitely talking to me now." And she basically became part of the show to tell me that her name was Diane.
Oh, really? That was the why she was she your date?
No, I mean, if she was, she aged a lot faster than I did. Like a lot faster.
Oh, sounds like you had quite the weekend then.
It was a good time, man. It's definitely something where I learned a lot. I had a couple of very challenging shows. They weren't bombs. People were laughing. You just one of those times where you have to try to bring people along,
Yeah, that definitely happens. I didn't bomb this last weekend because I didn't do any shows. I took the weekend off. It was amazing. I've been pretty much on the road every weekend since the beginning of the year. And, I've taken some time off here and there, obviously, because I was moving. But, I was either doing comedy or moving. And it's just been go, go, go. And I finally took a weekend off, and I didn't do anything. I laid around all day. I got caught up on some shows. I went to a burlesque show. I went and had a date night with my lady. We ended up at a dive bar where there was karaoke. It was amazing. It was a great weekend.
Did you take your lady to a burlesque show? Was that the same story?
Yeah, I took her to a burlesque show. We went together.
We're having a good time.
We went together. My lady's cool. She's into artsy stuff, and it was a good show. It wasn't as much like when you think about burlesque. It wasn't as much like there wasn't as much stripping with this one. It was more of like a cabaret, and it kind of reminded me more of a like a vaudeville show, just without comedy or magic. Because it was more singing and there was some dancing, obviously, because it is a burlesque show. But yeah, not like a lot of the other burlesque shows that I've been to. Right. It was very classy.
No comedy at the burlesque show.
No comedy. I hit up the producer and I was like, hey, if you ever want comedy, he's like, I'll just stick to women here. I was like, all right.
I feel like I see like comedy / burlesque shows like coming up just on my feed all the time. Like people doing that is just a very common.
Oh, absolutely. I used to produce one. I produced one called Pulp Pinup, and that's what it was. It was comedy and burlesque. I would book 3 or 4 comedians and 3 or 4 burlesque dancers and do a whole show. It would be like a couple burlesque dancers, then it would break up with some comedy, then it would go back to burlesque. Worked out pretty good. It was a pretty good show.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Well, what do you got coming up?
Oh, what do I got coming up? Oh, let's see. I'm going to be in D.C. That's what I got coming up. Excuse me. I am going to Washington, D.C. this weekend. I'm leaving Saturday. And then I'm going to be there till the 11th. And I do have a few shows while I'm in D.C. It's mostly a vacation, but I got some shows because, I'm a comedian. And comedians don't take real vacations. We say we're on vacation, but what that really means is we're going to go hit mics and shows while we're on vacation.
Yeah, it's a problem. We have an addiction, and it's okay. Admitting it is the first step. When you're there, you should drop in on our boy Winston Hodges. Who
I'm doing a show with Winston.
Holy moly. Okay. Well, tell him I said hey.
I'll have to do that.
Tell him that his bomb drop came out today.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'll have to do that. We'll have to let him know. I can definitely do that because I'm performing with him at a venue called Simple Bar on Sunday, April 3rd, which will be cool. And then and then I got some other shows. All my dates are on my website, danbublitz.com. Go check that out because I don't remember the exact times and specifics. I just know I'm doing 3 different shows while I'm out there in DC that I got book shows. And I might hit a mic. I don't know. What about you? Do you got anything coming up?
Nope. I got some writers.
Nope. So sad.
Yeah. So I had a big weekend. I had a kind of a big month. Just a lot going on in my world, and I'm slowing it down during April, just a little bit here, but I will definitely be picking things back up, both producing and performing. So I'll be keeping everybody in the know next time we're back on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really cool right now that we are back. I'm excited because I'm in the studio. Not my studio. Do you see this fancy background I got now?
Dude, you are
just coming along is what I'm doing.
That's more pictures than I've hung in my house in like 4.5 years. Just in this shot.
They're all comedy related. They're shows that I produced, and they've all mostly have signatures on them. So yeah, like that's where I'm not going to make money at comedy. I got one more thing I got to get framed and hung up, but I have a banner from a comedy room that I used to help produce, and we had the comics sign it. So it's got like comics like Brian Simpson, Taylor Tomlinson, Cameron Esposito, Jen Kober, all these just heavy hitters that are really coming up now have signed that banner. So I might just sell that and use that as my retirement.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, you're building up a collection.
Yeah, that's right. Building up the collection. But that's enough. I think we have a great show today. We have Luke Thayer is here, another guest that you hooked us up with.
Yeah, Luke is a big-time New York comedian. We'll find out all about his creds when we get on the show. But as I go back with Luke almost 20 years.
Wow.
I haven't really ever said that about anyone. So congratulations to him.
Have you been doing comedy that long?
No, he was doing comedy when I was an actor in New York. And so
that's right.
Appreciated that about each other. But I did not do comedy when I was in New York. Nothing I want to talk about anyway. And so, Luke has, just built his career there in New York. He's made a hell of a name for himself. And much like you, is a dry bar guy. He's going to have something coming up. He'll probably know more about maybe the timing of that than I do, but it sounds like they kind of just show up and tell you that it's ready. But he did film his episode, and he's I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that because mine just came out today. Or not today, yesterday. Yesterday, yes. Mine just came out yesterday. I have a dry bar comedy special. So if you're listening or watching and you want to go check out my dry bar comedy special, head over to drybarcomedy.com. You can use my promo code Dan Bublitz, and that's supposed to get you a free month, so you can check that out. My special's called Use Your Imagination, so definitely check that out because it's out there. I filmed it a long time ago, and they just released it, so it's probably not a good representation of what I am, where I'm at now.
Yeah,
as a comedian, but it was a good representation as where I was then.
But what's awesome is somebody coming to see you is not going to see a lot of that material. You've moved on from a lot of that stuff now.
Yeah,
There
well,
must be
yeah,
a fresh person.
especially since it's on a lot of that's on my album that's coming out too. So I'm definitely working on getting some new material there. So, but we'll get into this episode real quick. Make sure you go to artofbombingpod.com. Follow us on all the platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all the podcast applications that you can get for your phone. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to the podcast. That definitely helps us, helps people discover the podcast. If you want to kick in financially, you can do that too by going to patreon.com/artofbombingpod. You can do that if you want, get some cool perks. But the best way that you can support our show is sharing our content, telling friends, spreading the word. Word of mouth helps us grow the show and giving us that 5-star rating. And without further ado, let's get into this episode with Luke.
See you on the other side.
And now it's time for the stand-up soundbite.
They're old and broke, which is a horrible combination. My inheritance is going to be this giant bag of Sweet and Low packets my mom has been stealing from Denny's for the last 35 years. Every card I get says something like, "Happy birthday, love, Mom." Like, do you or don't you love me? Like, are you being sarcastic with this card? I'm just thankful I haven't got one that says, "Happy birthday, love, Mom." Yeah. That'll change Mother's Day. Then there's Dad, 80 years old, and decided to join Twitter. And he goes, "Okay, I think I get this. Now, let me see. You make jokes. I made you. Therefore, I shall make some jokes too." Okay, go ahead, right? I thought I'd share one of his jokes with you guys tonight. And keep in mind, he's 80 years old, right? He said, "I'm taking a nap, but maybe forever." I know, that's good joke structure, right? But that was 3 months ago. He's not tweeted anything since.
Hey, welcome, Luke, to the show. Thanks for joining us here at the R Bombing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. It's a pleasure meeting you. Josh and I were just talking that you filmed a Dry Bar comedy special.
I know, but I'm going to talk about that here. I didn't bomb on that. I killed
that's
on
good.
That. I got a standing ovation.
Oh, really? Wow, that's fantastic.
We'll talk about something where I actually bombed if we want to talk about on the bar.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
I killed on.
Right? No, that's awesome though. Congratulations. That's huge.
Well, thank you, and you as well.
Thank you.
It's an interesting venue. It's an interesting type of show too, to perform on a place where it's Utah. It's a little different than just every other show. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a clean comic, it's a little different.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I don't know how it was for you. I imagine that restrictions were gone. When I did it, there were restrictions. So it was set up more like a comedy club when I did it, and, masks and stuff like that. So reduced capacity and all that stuff when I did it. So, but either way, it was still good. I'm still happy that I got to do it. So that's cool. Have you done any shows this week?
Yeah, I was just at the Comedy Cellar last night. So
awesome. How'd that show go?
It was really fun. It was really good.
Awesome.
So it went really well. I went up early, and then Dave Attell was later in the lineup, so I got to watch him a bit. He's always fun to watch.
That's awesome. Are you regular then at the Cellar? Is that kind of your home club, or?
I'm there every Monday night. So there is a show that I do with my partner. It's the Comedians of Seth from the Seth Meyers Show. That's the name of the show at the Comedy Cellar, because my partner, he is actually the warm-up comic for Seth Meyers.
Oh, okay.
And so we do a show there every Monday night at 10:45 p.m. And so if anybody happens to be in New York on a Monday, I can almost guarantee you'll see me there. And it's pretty cool because, like, being at a venue like that, you get drop-ins. And it's a Monday. So you get drop-ins from people who you're like, hey, they're not working on the weekend, so there might be here. Kevin Hart's been on. Aziz Ansari does it a lot. Occasionally somebody like Gaffigan will come in. So, David Tell is there a lot, but Chris Rock's been hanging around. We won't get into any more Chris Rock stories right now, but he's been hanging around a bit there. TJ Miller is
definitely in the news this week, huh?
Yeah, he was definitely in the news this week. And so,
yeah, because he's going on tour with Kevin Hart. That's why he was in the news, right?
I can almost guarantee he sold some more tickets.
Right?
I think they went up from arenas to stadiums. Off the press they got, so.
They're probably gonna have to add some dates to that tour now.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that tour, it didn't sound like there was very many cities on that one. It sounded.
No, it looked like a limited. Well, I mean, you got Kevin Hart and Chris Rock. It's going to be a limited run anyway, because they're not going for. I'm guessing. This is just a guess because I'm not in the stratosphere. They probably could make more money on their own.
Oh yeah, probably
together. And so it's probably something fun, interesting. They probably can make a lot of money if you keep it limited, where it's like, oh, we can charge maybe double for the tickets right now if people know it's this limited run thing. If it was just, we always tour together and we've got, 300 dates a year together, you probably couldn't charge as much. This is just me speculating when I'm trying to fill, small rooms. It's
right. I know
what it's like to fill an arena and stadium. So,
yeah, I can't imagine where I'm at. Like, trying to, having that kind of following where I could sell out an arena. That would be pretty amazing. But I can barely sell out. Most of the shows I do, they just come because it's comedy. It's not for me.
Yeah, it's
they could care who's they could give a crap last who the comedian is, just as long as they're funny.
As long as they're funny, as long as they're making jokes, I think that's pretty much all that matters to people that are coming to the venues that I am performing at. If I'm headlining a small club or whatever, it's just a different thing when you're at a much more visible level. I'll put it that way, because it's not necessarily about the comedy. It's about the visibility, the attraction that you have become.
And who knows? This could be like a test run too. It could be a situation where they do a few dates and then, this was really good, and then do it. Go out and do it. I mean, look at Attell and Ross. They ended up doing a Netflix special together.
They did,
because they were.
Those
doing
are
their
the only
stuff.
guys that are doing stuff together. Like Joe Rogan and Chappelle were doing some dates together.
Yep, that's true.
They're merging these massive audiences together for these limited runs, and it's probably something fun for them to do too, where it's like, break up the many tour dates that they are doing by themselves, or having, they've got openers, which it's fun to see. Openers for gigantic comedians are usually big comedians or really good, like Jerry Seinfeld for a long time, I think, had Tom Papa was his opener. And so you get to see who these comics bring along. It's like, if you're at the top of the pyramid, you're bringing along somebody that could be selling out a comedy club on their own, for sure. And sometimes even small theaters,
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's something to aspire to, right? One day we'll be those comics. Just keep plugging along. One day we get to be those comics.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about other comics and their, selling out arenas and stuff. We're here to talk about, those fun shows. And by fun, I mean the terrible shows that when the night doesn't go well, where we don't think we're going to be able to ever get to that level to perform in a stadium. That's what we're here for. So let's get into that a little bit. And I would love to hear your story of a time where you felt like you had a really bad set, or where you felt like you bombed really bad.
This is the interesting thing about, just even thinking about this, is that because I just coming into the show, I was like, when did I bomb? And like, I just got back from Texas. So last week I was doing a corporate gig, and it was funny enough, this is like the real estate agents of Texas, their Oscars. and this was just whatever Friday. So they're kind of doing Oscar weekend as well. So I'm the host. I'm the I mean, this year it's like Amy Schumer and Wanda Sykes and Regina Hall were the hosts. I was that for this company, and so they had this beautiful affair. Like it was a cocktail hour where they had magicians going around and everyone's dressed in 1920s clothing. They had people on stilts. They had a live big band type of thing going on. And that was for an hour, just free drinks, free food, all of this stuff flowing around. We get in, they had this nice steak dinner. And so I am now going to be presenting the presenters. I'm doing a little up top. I'm reading teleprompter, all of this stuff. And as everyone's filed in their seats, I'm like already like, this is going to be rough because as elegant as this is, they are talking very loudly. And any comedian knows if it's just a rowdy, talky room, that's worse than just having a quiet room that doesn't like you, because there's not even listening.
Yeah, they're just totally ignoring you at that
They're
point.
ignoring. And so they didn't do any real prep. What they really should have done is like, here's some really loud music to signify we're starting low, flip the lights like they do on Broadway, just flash them a little bit like, hey, we're starting in 30 seconds, and then brought me up. So instead they had the voice of God, which people are listening, just God mic is just somebody who you hear their voice. They are somewhere in the back or, a tech space, and they are speaking through the speakers. And so you just hear, and give it up for your host, Luke Thayer. And so I have to walk on stage. Well, no one even heard that announcement, and then try to get everyone's attention. And so to me, can't even call this a bomb because I'm not up there to do just comedy, but it's something where I go, this isn't going anywhere. They're not listening to me. I'm trying to throw in a couple jokes at the beginning. They gave me some like, here's the people you can make fun of because these are like the president and former presidents of this whole organization. You can make fun of these guys. And so it's like, okay, I do a couple of those jokes. Out of the room of 500 people, 12 actually hear the jokes and laugh. And it's like, okay. And I had to do this thing, which I hate doing, which is almost becoming school teacher. Like, hey guys, like you guys are talking really loudly. You're talking over me. If you stay this way, you're going to be talking over presenters, and it's for you guys. This whole thing's for you. I don't care about this. This is your thing. These are your awards. So if you talk over, you're talking over your own celebration. So I don't care, but this is up to you. And they still talk through all of that. Then I bring up these people who are introducing the awards, and they're talking through them too. And it's like, it's their people they're talking over.
Wow.
And some guy wins an award. He comes up there and he starts in of like, this is what really matters. And what makes this so meaningful is this, this little girl named, I'll use the name Jessica. I don't remember who it was, but anonymity anyway. So it was like, Jessica, and she essentially, it's a little girl that died of some disease, and they're talking through that. And like at one point, one guy from a different table walks up to another table, like, guys, hey, there's stuff going on. They're like, oh, really? And it's like, yes, really, that it is because this is the event you do every year, and you know how this thing goes. And so I was supposed to do a 10-minute set in the middle of this whole thing, like in the middle of this show. And I went up to the producer. I go, there's no point in me doing this. Like, I can, but it's going to be just 10 minutes of weirdness. Like where the host, like, why did the host just go up there and just talk and try to tell jokes in the middle of the thing? So we cut that out completely. I told a couple jokes. They hit okay for as few people that were listening. So, and then that was it. We ended 3 minutes earlier than we were supposed to. And I'm like, that's fine. Let's just get out of here. And, after the very first part, though, this is one of those fun type of moments where the first part where I don't tell any joke, except, a couple jokes about those people they told me about. But nobody heard me. We talked. I have to get off stage and then people are presenting. And some guy came up and goes, "I found you mildly amusing." And I'm like, I didn't even start yet. I haven't even started. I haven't told any jokes. I haven't done this jokes yet. You found me mildly amusing. Like, so those are gigs where, people are like, they don't know how good you are at something.
Yeah.
So they think that they need to like, oh man, keep at it. You'll do better. And it's like the night before I got into Texas night early because they wanted me in early the next day. So T.J. Miller and Dustin Chafin was opening for him, but they happened to be in Dallas, and I was there, and I know them both, and so I was like, "Hey, I'll just stop by the club." And TJ's like, "Yeah, do a set." And so I do a set in front of T.J. Miller's audience, and how we were talking about earlier about comics that draw an audience. He draws an audience, and I go up and I murder, and it's not even 12 hours later, I'm in front of this conference doing whatever it is I was doing, and it's not even a bomb. It's just why am I even doing this? Like why are we, this is we get into comedy to perform comedy, and we want to have fun with it. I had a tweet after that show, and it was the show created the joke in my mind, but it wasn't really based on that show because I can't even call that corporate gig a bomb. It was just, this is a weird event that I got hired to, and I read off the teleprompter basically the whole time for them, and all right, that's what they ended up hiring me to do.
It makes you wonder if, because like you said, they do this every year. It makes you wonder if that's how it goes every year. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do they not have manners ever? Like, they know that's what they're there for?
They seem to act like it wasn't. They were like, "Oh, we're so sorry. We
played dumb."
Yeah. We didn't have one last year because of the pandemic, so everybody's just excited to see each other. It's like, well, you haven't seen people in 3 years now. I mean, we've seen people. It's Texas. You guys lifted the mask mandate, like in April of 2020. I think you're
say like 5 minutes after it happened.
Yeah. So my tweet with it is a comedy club is where a comedian gets paid a little bit to kill, and a corporate gig is where a comedian gets paid a lot to bomb.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of what happens. I do some corporates here and there, and I never bomb. It's just compared to what a club is.
Absolutely.
It's not killing that way.
Yeah. Well, and because when you're in a corporate setting like that, it isn't always set up for comedy. That's the thing. Like at a comedy club, it's set up for comedy. Most people that go to a comedy club for a comedy show are going for a comedy show. They're going to laugh. They're going, they don't go there hoping that everybody's going to bomb. They want everybody to win. And at a corporate gig like that, they're there, like you said, a lot of times it's a party type situation, and they're just there to party and see their colleagues that they haven't got to see or whatever. So they could the entertainment is just like an extra thing or whatever. Now, on a situation like that, where you got booked for this gig and they told you some people you could make fun of because it was kind of their Oscars. So they're playing off that, having you do your, a monologue or whatever. What did you do to get ready for that then? I mean, because it's hard. Because don't you feel like it's hard to kind of write jokes on people if you don't really know them?
I don't know that I found this particularly difficult because what I did was they just told me, like, here's some things about the people. They really told me, like, as I got there, earlier in the day, here's some things. And it's like, okay, well, I'm well-versed and seasoned enough at this point that if you told me that's the boss 5 seconds before I go on stage, I could figure out something to make that funny about the boss. Like, I already know there's inherent things about the boss or the president of an organization that you kind of already know. They tell me like, oh, he's super rich. It's like, yeah, of course he is. So,
he's the president.
Yes. Out of all of these top real estate agents who are making the most money in this field that are awarding each other stuff, and he's the top guy. Yeah. I figured that guy. I figure the guy that came up in a Rolls has some money, so I can make fun of that stuff, and I can look at what they're wearing. I made an ad lib about what he was wearing. Everybody was wearing 1920s clothes, and I go, something along the lines of like, I appreciate that everyone here decided to dress up in 1920s, have that great spirit, and I think it's really cool that I'll call him Jim. Jim decided to dress like Miami Vice. Just because when you got that much money, you don't care what the theme of a party is. You create your own, right? Just something like that. Just ad lib in the moment. And so, like, yeah, I don't find that particularly because, honestly, at least in my opinion, the way I do it is, they think that you need to be really specific about those people, but there's generalities about these types of people that sound very specific to them. And you're talking about rich person in general, or, the boss in general. It's like, it kind of just transfers from company to company. It's like, they're not nearly as unique as they think they are. They're not nearly as interesting as they think they are. So you can just make these general jokes about them. And it works,
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny too, because when you're talking about how that person came up to you and was like, "I found you mildly amusing," or whatever, that's exactly what happened to me at a corporate that inspired this podcast. At the end of the show, a guy came up to me and he was like, "Keep at it, kid. You'll get there." And it's like, oh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Every time.
it's the way that people complain anyway, it's because people have no idea. People do not understand comedy or know comedy nearly as much as comedians think or hope that they do. They really don't. It's kind of like, if somebody was talking to me about the music industry, it's like, I don't know, like, I don't know how a song, I bet I know enough at this point to go, oh, not everybody writes their songs, but I wouldn't necessarily know, yes, this type of artist writes their songs, their singer-songwriter, this person just sings. I don't know. Like, it's not my industry, so I don't know. And so what people know about comedy is very limited. And so, yeah, like I did a Christmas corporate. And corporate's even like the wrong term for this one. It was in New Jersey, and it was just their holiday party. And there was like 30 people there. Mm-hmm. And this was a construction company. They were very New Jersey Italian. Like, they wannabe Sopranos type of guys, right? And so just everything about it was like, first of all, I had to take a bus there from Port Authority because I had just gotten a car accident like a couple weeks before that.
Oh, no.
I didn't have a car anymore. So I had to take a bus from Port Authority. It drops me off like in the middle of like the woods at this Knights of Columbus. And I was like, I can't even believe there's a bus that drops me off like right here in front of this place. I go there, and the guy's name's Vinny or Dominic or something like that. And and I had talked to him on the phone, and so when I got there, there's some guys smoking on the porch, and I'm like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And I go in, and he happened to be one of those guys, but he didn't say hello to me. Like, he didn't go, "Oh, hey, I'm Dominic. Let's talk. Yeah, I am the one that hired you. I see that you do not look like us, and you do not. You are a stranger to us, so you must be Luke, and you look like the picture that I had in the video that I saw. So come on in." Just lets me go. So I wander in. I'm like, I don't see anybody that looks like I'm supposed to be talking to them. Finally there's it's the office manager for this company is there, and she talks to me a little bit, and it's like, "Oh yeah," and this thing's supposed to start like, I forget what time, but it was 9:00. I think it was supposed to start, and they're like, "We're going to start at 9:30," and I'm like, I'm here early because I want to be here early, but like, can't we start at 9? I'm here at 8:45. By the way, I gotta catch a bus back. There's like
only so many.
There's one more bus that's going to be going back tonight, and it's like at 10:30 or something like that. So if you're starting at 9:30 and then you want me to do an hour, and then after that, if people, even if I just do an hour, it's like the bus is going to be there. It's like, and so I was like, can we start? Well, we really want to start then. And there's things about these type of gigs that you don't know ahead of time. And I didn't necessarily know until there's a DJ there and he starts filling me in on some details. But like, this party had started at 7 p.m. And it looked dead. There was like 20, 30 people there. There was like, out of those 30 people, 10 looked like they were enjoying themselves, and about 20 looked like I just want to go home. They had an open bar that nobody was getting drinks at. They had a buffet of food that people must have eaten already because they're not even there. They got a dance floor. Literally no one's dancing. They got a DJ that is not even playing anything at this point. He's just standing around. And so finally Vinny comes over to me, or Dominic, or, you know, whatever. And he's like, hey, come back here, you know, come back here. We'll talk. And then he's like, pulls out the money and like, yeah, I'm gonna pay you this. And I go, well, you know, also the time thing, I really need to be getting going. He goes, well, hey, just do whatever amount of time you want to do, and I'll get you an Uber back. And I'm like, well, I live in Brooklyn, and Uber from New Jersey to Brooklyn is going to be expensive. Are you sure you want to do that? Oh yeah, don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. So I go and perform for these guys at 9:30, and immediately it's like, oh, these guys are not into this at all. There's like 2 tables in front of me of a total of 8 people that are like listening. And I even talked to another table over here, and there's something that happens on the subway here in New York City, which, you know, I know most listeners here are not from New York City, but there will be somebody that gets on the train, and whether they have mental issues, emotional issues, whether they're just a street preacher, they're selling something, they're talking to this train full of people, and everyone on that train ignores them in unison. Just a complete, I'm oblivious that you are even talking to me. I'm going to act like this person doesn't exist. That's what a couple of these tables were doing. I'm talking to them, and it was just blank. I'm not responding to you. I'm not going to say yes or no. It's as if nobody is talking to me. It's like I'm sitting staring at a wall, and I'm like, all right, I guess you guys don't want to be talked to. So I go back to these 2 tables, and the office manager, I can start to see she went from like really bubbly to like, you know, this kind of face, talking to the guy. And I'm like, I'm flying through material here. And I'm like, man, I've done like 30 minutes here, and there's no point in continuing on here. So like 35 minutes in, I go, all right, guys, you know, I think that's probably enough. I think you guys have enough. You look like you're tired and probably are done for the night. And I leave, and then I can't find Dominic anywhere. Dommy is gone. Where's the guy that's going to get my Uber? And I'm already getting this feeling like this dude's going to not get this for me.
Oh, no.
And so I go outside looking for him. I come back inside and go, hey, you know, Dom, I'm going to leave. Now, you know, I'm ready to take off. And he goes, okay, see ya. And I go, okay, fine. He goes, I got your number if I ever need you. I'm like, why are you even telling me that? You know, this went terribly. And so, and he goes, you know, you did like 45 minutes. And I was like, well, you bumped it up to 45 because it was not 45. And he goes, but, you know, if you'd done an hour, I would have got you an Uber. But you didn't. You did 45. So I guess you're taking the bus. And I'm like, great. So now I go stand in the woods waiting for this bus in the cold. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll go wait for the bus. Just waiting forever. And then I finally see the bus coming down the street, just out of the darkness. It pulls up. There is no one on the bus, just the bus driver. And he goes, I can't believe you're here. I haven't picked up somebody here in over 2 years. I drive by every night, and it's been over 2 years since I picked somebody up. And I'm like, okay, which one of us is dead? Like one of us is dead in this story, right? Like I'm getting on the bus with Large Marge here.
This is definitely a ghost story.
And so that company then emails my agent and the booking agent and complains about me. She has this. By the way, I've said this already, but I'm just going to emphasize it again. She's the office manager, and she sends this typo-ridden letter to him, emailing exactly. Oh, you know, we didn't like him. He was just a storyteller and didn't do jokes, and he had a couple jokes that were funny, but then everything else was just storytelling about his life. And we could have got a photo booth for what we paid him and had a better good time and all this. And I'm like, I'm glad that there's a booking agent in between us, because if you email that to me, I'm going to just lose it over like how dumb you guys are. Those stories were jokes. They weren't I'm not a storyteller. Like you guys saw the clips. Like that's the type of style of comedy I do. You know, that's not indicative of everything I do, but I don't. You know, like I think they took like me, like the joke about me with my dad and the Twitter. I think they took that as like, he's just telling a story about his dad on Twitter. Why isn't he telling a joke? I'm like, that is the joke, guys.
Yeah.
All of that is, you know, punchlines and humor there. Like what, if you guys don't understand that and you don't get it, that's fine. But you know, there's certain situations where you go into and you go, I know what type of comedy these guys would like.
Yeah.
Not it.
Yep.
Not it.
Oh, yep.
You know, these guys would absolutely love the hackiest, dirtiest comic they could find. Like,
Yep.
just be a hack, just be filthy, and they would have loved it. They would have just, it's like, they could, and you can reach into a barrel and grab the type of comic that you wanted in New Jersey. Just grab that guy, and you'd have a great time. And there still would only be 8 people listening because everybody else was like, I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. I've been here since 7 o'clock. It's 3 hours later. I mean, I want to go home. So
Yeah, it's funny how like people. I've always, especially with holiday parties, it always seems to me that most of the people that go to them, you know, they're there for the free dinner and hopefully the free gifts that they're giving away, and they don't care about anything else.
no.
And a lot of
and those are the
times,
nice ones.
and a lot of times, the comedian is what's standing between them and their prices.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
what people don't realize is they think that something's going to be a lot more fun to everybody than it is. And this is why even on anytime I'm doing a party or any sort of gig like that, where it's like, I actually did a couple weeks ago, me and my opener, we went into somebody's home and performed for somebody's birthday party. And that sounds like, I mean, it could be a real rough gig. It was amazing. These people were into it. They treated it like we were in a comedy club. It was great. But something I told them ahead of time, I was like, do not make this a surprise to the guests. If you want it to be surprise to the birthday boy, that's fine. But don't make this a surprise to the guests. They need to know that when they are going to this party, that there will be a stand-up comedian there at some point. Because you do not want to surprise guests that think they're just going to a birthday party with that. Because there's certain things that you want everybody to be able to say, hey, I know the comedian's coming at 8. I don't like this. I want to be somewhere else. Or I want to know to sit in a different room. Or to be somewhere else or leave the party altogether. It's like, it's the same way, like if you just hired a stripper, you can't just surprise the church group with it.
Exactly.
Tell people what's happening so they can decide whether they want to be part of that or not.
Exactly. Nothing worse than hijacked comedy.
Oh, yeah. And that is what so much is out there. You know, it's because comedy clubs are different because they are coming to us. It is a designated space, safe space for comedy. We're going there for this. That's why hecklers are not permitted, you know, heckling, all of that stuff, and you get tossed. And even there was years ago when I first started out, I was an usher at a comedy club in Indiana. And Lisa Lampanelli this is before she was really big. And so they put a sign there that said ahead of time, if you're easily offended, you will be offended by this show. If you're not easily offended, you will be offended by this show. We are telling you ahead of time. So when you buy these tickets, they are non-refundable. And so if you choose to leave or you don't like the show, you're not getting your money back. We are warning you ahead of time. And so there's a big difference, I think, between that. And that's why I think like whether anything that's said in a comedy club, when people get offended by that kind of stuff, that's wrong place. You came to us, not us. But other spaces where we go into, you know, and surprise people, That's a different story. If they don't like it, if they are mad that it's there, I understand that because we invaded your space. And so I try to mitigate that as much as possible. If it's a corporate thing, if it's a party, whatever it is, you tell those guests that I will be there because I do not want to surprise people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super smart because that happens more times than not where, they just want to surprise somebody and then it's like, oh. Like I remember I did a birthday party in San Diego with Dustin Nickerson, and that was it was like a surprise party for somebody's like 40th or something, and I don't think they weren't into comedy. Like some of the other guests were, but I don't think the actual birthday person was a fan of what was happening.
Yeah, and that's look, I get that. I get not everybody likes comedy. I did one of the worst gigs I've done, and this is a few years ago because it was probably a year or two before the pandemic hit. And it was, oh gosh, I keep blanking on this type of phrase because I am not Catholic. But when it's like the Catholic version of like a bar mitzvah, it's like not christening, but something like confirmation.
Oh, yeah, confirmation.
They have a confirmation, I guess. And so there was a confirmation party, and on a Sunday, 1:00. Was it New Jersey? Probably. And it was an upstairs restaurant of an Italian, place. And I go there and I go upstairs, and this is a room where, you've got the confirmation kid and his friends and cousins and stuff sitting to my left. So you got, what is that, 12 years old? A bunch of 12-year-olds there. You've got his family and probably aunts and uncles to my left. And then in the back of these people, so there's like 50 people total, is a bunch of super old looking people. But old in a way that you don't see outside of a Godfather movie. Like any of those old looking people that have immigrated from Sicily. Well, that's these people. In fact, they didn't even immigrate. These are Sicilians that came over for this just as their vacation to be part of this confirmation, and they don't speak English. So
wow.
Out of the 40 people in the room, 20 of them don't speak English. And
wow.
So, then 10 of them are children, and then 10 are the other families. So I've got like really a shot with maybe like 25% of these people even know what I'm talking about. And so I'm performing, and I think they wanted an hour. People always want way too much comedy for what these type of events should have. They always I want an hour. No, you don't. You want 20 minutes. That's what you want. You think you want an hour. You don't want an hour. This is not a comedy club. You want 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. You're going to love it. You're going to want to tip extra because it was so good. But if I do an hour, you're going to be like, at some point you go, we have other stuff we wanted to do. Yes, I know it's a party. You wanted to eat the cake. And so I'm doing this, and I'm just bombing so hard. Like the kids kind of laughing a little bit. They're kind of just like, I don't really understand everything here. The families are kind of like, there's a couple people who are like, oh, okay, this guy's kind of funny, but not really anything. And just the woman that hired me is just kind of sitting there like, what is this? I mean, half the room doesn't speak English, so they don't know what's going on. They're just kind of like speaking Italian to each other, going, I don't know what this is. And I don't know, out of the hour, I probably like 15 minutes, and I go, okay, guys, I think that's about all we can do here. And, so and the thing is, she didn't have the money ready. So I'm still upstairs with them, and she's fumbling around, digging in her purse like she's looking for a certs at the bottom of her bag. I'm like, how do you not have the money ready? Let me get out of here. They're just staring at me. And they don't know that it's over. And, the people that don't speak English are like, why is this guy, what was he even doing here? And she finally, pulls out the money. She's like, those crumbled bills of trying to like figure out, is this what I'm supposed to give you? Yeah, give me that.
Just give it all to me. Let me go.
Give me whatever it is. I'll take it. $37.50. I don't care. Let's get out of here. And as I'm walking down the stairs, I'm calling that booking agent. Go, don't ever send me on a gig like this again. Don't ever do this. Of course, probably like a week later, I was like, hey, I'll take whatever you got. You know.
Isn't that how it always goes? That's funny. Well, we got to wrap things up, but I got some stuff that I like to ask at the end. The bumming of bombing, you know, the dreadful feeling you get when you bomb, how does that affect you, and how has that changed over the years?
Oh, well, first of all, I'll go reverse order in these questions, because how has it changed over the years is it's night and day. When I started out, and really something people don't understand about the journey of a comedian is it's long. It's years before, like, you know, you go and you'll see my dry bar special and you go, this guy's really good. And you go, yeah, that's years of getting to that space. I didn't start yesterday. So at the beginning of my journey in comedy, I didn't know I was funny. And this is true of every comedian. You don't really know you think you're funny, or you hope you're funny, but you don't really know. And bombing, which happens a lot more at the beginning than you would like. In fact, it might be majority of what you do is bombing, to try to figure out what a joke is and how to tell a joke and what type of joke should I be telling. It was a lot. It was like, I don't know if I can do this. Am I supposed to be doing this with my life? Is this my calling? Do I really suck that badly? There's something I call the confidence tank. All of us have this tank that we have to fill with confidence in order to be a good comedian. And bombing early on, I would have nothing in the tank. I'd just be too many bombs. It just, you know, and bombing means something different everywhere. I would do open mics where people were like, it's just other comics there. It's not even an audience. And I did one where I get up on stage. Everyone left the room before I started telling the jokes, except for one guy. And then I get off stage. He comes up and tells his jokes to me. He gets done, and everybody else comes back in the room to listen to each other. And it's like, that just, it's crushing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it changes, though. Like now, like, you know, I told you, like, that gig that I did in New Jersey, the bus ride from Large Marge gig, and Vinny and Dominic and, you know, whatever all their names were. That just makes me angry at them. Like, how dare you complain about me? I know I'm good. I should be complaining to you about you. You suck.
You're a terrible audience.
Yeah, you are terrible. In fact, if you ever call to try to book me again, that price is going to be 4, 5, 6, 10 times whatever you pay me before. You know, and I'm telling you, you should have got a photo booth. I don't, you know, so there's a difference when you have success and you have things. It builds you up in a strength where you go, I know. I've killed 1,000 times in a row now. I know I'm good. So having one off where you go, all right, they're not listening, or this is just not the right audience for me, or, you know, they don't speak English, they only speak Italian. You know, okay, that's them. That's not me.
Yeah, and you can only do so much on situations like that anyway. You know, especially if they don't understand you.
Yes. Yeah, but a younger version of me would be like, I must suck. I didn't know that it was them, because that's all I had experienced at that point. But when you experience other things, and this is true of every area of your life, when you experience more, you have a better pool of knowledge to draw from. And you go, all right, that is what it is. That thing was the problem, not me.
Yep. No, absolutely. And when you do a joke say you do a joke and it bombs, or, you know, doesn't get the reaction you're expecting, what goes through your mind in the moment?
That's an analytical thing at this point. Like, I'm just going, okay, that joke's not it. Well, let me put it this way. If it's a newer joke, it's like, okay, I'm missing something out of this joke right now, or I'm not quite getting across what I need to get across with it, or I need to cut that thing, or I need to add something else, or I need to rewrite this. If it's a joke that has worked 1,000 times, I go, okay, this audience just, for whatever reason, they didn't get that joke, you know, whatever. So it's all an analytical process at this point. Now, if I tell a really good joke up top, it doesn't get anything, or if I ad lib up top, it doesn't get anything, then I tell like a solid joke, it doesn't get anything, then I'm starting to go into the mode of like, there's something wrong with this audience.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes absolute sense on that. I kind of feel the same way too. Especially, like you said, if it's a joke that does good and that one time doesn't get the reaction, you're just like, well, you guys don't know what you're doing with comedy. You don't know how to be a good comedy audience.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like this is something that just came to mind, is that there's positives that you go through too. You have those moments where you have people go, keep at it, I hope you get good someday or whatever. But then you have like, there was a show that I did, I don't remember what it was, New Mexico or Arizona or something like this. And it was a casino, and there was an old lady there. She was like 98 years old. And after the show, she goes, "You are the funniest comedian I've ever seen in my life." And I go, that really means something, because you've literally seen them all. You've been alive for all of them. And so like but those are the kind of things where you go, that sticks with you too. Where you go, I can do this. And that's just to say there are great audiences, there are great audience members that have comments that actually fill the tank too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you do to try to analyze your sets to improve?
Well, I will write things out and write down ideas, jot down ideas, but I also like to be in the moment on stage with those ideas. And so for me, a joke isn't really ever done. It's always has a chance that I will think of something and ad lib something, some addition to a joke in the moment. And I've had that with stuff that's been on my album or stuff that I've filmed, and I go, yeah, a week later I found out something that really, really put that joke over the top and was so funny. But all right, oh well, but I am constantly doing that. And so I write jokes every day. I have for years. I switched from paper and pen to doing notes app, and I've just got thousands and thousands of joke ideas, and I will go through them before, when I'm starting to put stuff together, and I go, that joke idea, that's not very good, or that's not good enough. And I kind of took this principle from Woody Allen when he talked about comedy, where his ratio, I think, was something along the lines of, you write 1,000 jokes, about 100 of them you think are good enough to take to the stage, and out of those, after you test them, you find out 10 of them are actually good enough to stay in the act. And so I would say that ratio is probably pretty good. There might be a little off, different for each of us. Sinbad didn't even write jokes.
He just went on stage.
he write shoes on the napkin and go up and do an hour on shoes. So there are some people that have that kind of gift. So I'm somewhere in that element, that area of like, I will take those ideas to stage, and then I will just let whatever happens in the moment happen. Being comfortable on stage is a big part of it. Feeling like I can ad lib with an audience, and they are going to go with me wherever I can. And then I just kind of remember it from there. Sometimes I will jot things down afterwards and go, I need to remember that thing. That's a great addition to this joke or whatever.
Awesome.
Did I explain it? Did I explain?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's kind of my process. It's almost kind of where you write premises down, but you kind of really work it out on stage. And I'm kind of the same way. That's kind of my style too, where, try to get the whole premise, out, and then work it and develop it from there. And then, like you said, once you get it to where it sounds how you want it to, if you ad lib something, you got to make sure you either watch the tape back or write that stuff down, which is definitely important to do. And that's why I think it's important to record sets.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. I got, you can't really see it. This is a Post-it note that's on my computer, but it's a joke I wrote. And while you guys were actually talking at the beginning of the podcast, I was just looking at that, and I was like, well, how can I change that? Because it's not quite right. And I go, oh, that's the word. And this is a joke I've tried. I have not posted. Sometimes I will test jokes on Twitter, like, oh, if it gets a response, like, I think I got the wording right there. But this is one I did on a Zoom show. That's why it's sitting here. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this wording, which I'll tell you the joke, because I don't know if this is it's not evergreen. And so a lot of people were talking about, they saw the Batman and they were asking me if I saw the Batman. I go, well, actually I haven't seen the Batman, but I did see a Batman. It turns out he was just a mentally deranged zookeeper. And so I was like, I don't like the term mentally disturbed. So what is that I need to change? And so thinking there, I go emotionally disturbed. And then I was like, zookeeper's not quite the right thing. So now I'm thinking about what that word would be. But it goes up, I go up there with, because that's a fully formed joke the way I told it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You got to set up and a punch.
Yeah, but I'm like, there's something that I think that can make it funnier or make more sense, or also like even just take out an element where I'm like saying mentally disturbed might cause somebody to be like, oh, is he making fun of, somebody that has a psychological disorder? It's like, well, or if I don't say that, what if I say emotionally disturbed? Like, because I want to play into the fact that Batman himself is emotionally disturbed. How do you do that? And then zookeeper's not the right thing. They don't take care of bats. So then you have to look up, what is that word? And so that's an example of, this is not a joke that's going to be in the act, because how long could I be doing the Batman joke?
Yeah.
But it's a joke that I told in a moment, and so I'm like, okay, how do I make that funnier? And I'm doing that with all of my jokes all of the time. And if there's something that I think that can be funnier, and I say it in the moment, it's gonna be changed to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's important too, that we should always be trying to improve jokes. And on the same way, like I said, my Dry Bar comedy special that just came out, I watched it yesterday. And a lot of the jokes that are in it, there's quite a few of them that I've developed, and they're way better now.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
But fortunately for me, most of them are on my album. So, it's like, well, that's good. There's another version of them that's a better version than that, but it's
yeah.
But also,
yeah. Oh, that's the way it works. Like, I actually have a joke that is played on SiriusXM, which it actually drives me a little nuts because they cut off the punchline, and the punchline, because it had, well, I'll just call it the R word in it.
Oh, okay.
But it was not me saying it about somebody. It was somebody saying that to me. And it was kind of a quote, and it was based on a real conversation I had with somebody. But they cut that out, and so it ends up cutting the punchline out. And I'm like, but it was, a month later after I, had recorded that album, that I go, this is the way to tell it, where it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all, and it still gets the same idea across. Oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had that, so that it doesn't have this weird joke out there where it's kind of cut in the middle, and it's like, oh, that just doesn't. No, that's not what I want. And I don't even like the other version that does have this, because I'm like, I always felt a little uncomfortable, even though I'm like, that's not, I'm not saying it about somebody else. I'm not punching down. I'm not doing anything like that. It is actually someone talking to me, and then me dealing with that situation. But there was a way to circumvent all of that, and I hadn't found it yet.
Yeah, and that's jokes. That's comedy.
Yeah.
It's you're always there's always room for improvement, and it just goes to show. I mean, there obviously there are comics that don't ever change their act, and they do them for 20 years or whatever. But the good comics are the ones that are constantly evolving, writing new material, improving the jokes they have. They can just never stop, which is, I think that's a good quality to have. I mean, it can be maddening at the same time, but.
Well, you're saying it's a good quality because you have that quality.
Yeah, well, that could be too.
I think it's a great quality to have.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get wrapped up. I like to end on a more positive note. I like to do some fun stuff at the end. The first thing, we have a Art of Bombing playlist of songs to get pumped. Doesn't have to get you pumped for comedy, just get you pumped for whatever. Do you have a song that you would like added to the playlist?
Well, I will say this. If people could hear what I'm listening to when I go on my way to like the Comedy Cellar, they would be like, you're listening to that to get pumped up for shows? which I don't know if you have this on the list, but Lizzo. I think Lizzo's great. Like Lizzo, Juice is great. It pumps me up on the way to the show. But I will listen to like Katy Perry. I will listen to Sia. That's the kind of stuff I listen to.
I like Sia.
Yeah, Dua Lipa. Like, I'll listen to this stuff. And people are like, aren't you too old for Dua Lipa? No, I'm not. Like, it's great, you know. And so those are the, you know, but if I'm just picking one song to add, it would be Lizzo Juice.
All right, we'll add it. We'll add it to the list because I don't think it's on there yet. It might be. We'll see. Yeah. But if not, it'll be added to it.
I'm gonna be honest. You actually look like a guy that doesn't even know what I just said. It sounds like you're like, is that one word he just said?
No, I know I look that way, but I know what it is.
Okay. You look like that.
I used to live in Minnesota, so I know who Lizzo is. Come on.
Okay. All right. So if you used to live in Minnesota, there's some Prince. There's some Prince on this list, so I know.
Exactly. But you're not wrong. I do look like a person that thinks that's one word.
Can we get a producer in? He's saying something. He's saying something. I think he's actually speaking Italian now.
Yeah, somebody go get a Google Translate ready. And then another thing I like to, since we talk about a bad gig, I like to hear about good gigs. What's been one of your favorite gigs so far? I have a feeling I know what it might be, but.
Well, I will say that just the other night when I was with TJ Miller and Dustin Chafin, we were all performing together. It was fun because Dustin even said, he goes, this feels like a New York show because Dustin used to be in New York. He's in LA now, but we would do lineups together, me, TJ, Dustin, and it felt like that. And there was a moment where, I don't think TJ will mind me saying this, but like it was the most fun moment in comedy I've seen and felt in a while. And this was not me on stage, but TJ, just the random events that were happening in the room ended up with 2 mic stands on stage. And so he took one of the mic stands and he held it out to a guy with mozzarella sticks, and he goes, put the mozzarella stick in the mic stand. And the guy stuffed it in the mic stand, and he goes, who's going to eat this? And a guy ate it out of there, and he starts feeding people out of the mic stand, and TJ's just yelling like, eat it! And it felt like something I don't get to experience in comedy as nearly as much as what I think maybe was experienced in the 80s. Like it felt like that kind of like, I'm watching Sam Kinison here. I am on the show with Sam Kinison. And being part of that moment, having been in front of that audience and killed, having the audience come out afterwards, and, oh, you're so funny, we love you, you're great, just wanting to have a conversation with me after they saw all this cool stuff. That was that's just one that I can't say that that's more fun necessarily than bringing up Kevin Hart to stage or something like that, but it was the most recent, just really fun. Like this is something I don't think people get to experience with comedy nearly as much as maybe they did in the 80s when people were still experimenting with some stuff.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I actually opened for TJ the weekend before I filmed my dry bar. He was the last weekend that I did to get ready. And it was kind of cool because, it was during the pandemic, so we didn't hang out. It was very strict or whatever. But, we did talk at the very end of the weekend. But he traded me. I got his merch. I got his hot sauce. And he took some of my merch and had me sign it. And he signed his hot sauce. So that was kind of cool.
That's great. He's got peanut butter now, too. You can get some.
Oh, really? That's awesome. That's great. That's definitely a unique kind of merch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got one more thing that I like to do, but before I do this, just real quick, if you're watching, you're still watching, thank you guys for tuning in. But if you have questions, this is the time to get them in. If you haven't already left your question, this is the time to do it. We're going to do this next. We're going to do pick a number, and then we're going to bring Josh in and answer some questions, and then we're going to wrap things up. So what I like to do at the end is a game called Pick a Number. You're going to pick a number between 1 and 20. I'm going to ask you a corresponding question that may or may not be related to comedy.
Okay. You're asking me.
Yeah, so you got to pick a number.
I'm looking around like, I have to pick
who else?
17.
17 it is. If you could make a difference in the world, what would you be known for?
Making a difference. Although,
Yeah, who wants to do
can I
that?
pick 13 now? So
That'd be funny if 13 was even more like
yeah.
on the lines of that.
If I could make a difference, I would slap Will Smith. That's what
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a great response to that question. I think we should leave it at that.
There we go.
All right, well, let's bring Josh back in, and we'll do some Q&A, and then we'll get wrapped up. And thanks again for doing the podcast. This has been great.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I've probably been too long-winded, but
it's okay. I love it. I know you get us started on comedy. Just go for hours.
You mean to tell me that TJ Miller stole my mozzarella into the mic stand bit?
Yeah. I tried to tell him. I was like, there's a guy, Josh Shirley,
dude,
Kansas City area. I don't know if you know
TJ,
him, but
I gotta tell you, man. No, that's I've never done that in my life. So a couple questions, guys. First one I'll kind of drag into the stream here. Our buddy JP Martin, have you reached a point where you weren't enjoying performing anymore?
I've definitely had moments where it's like, oh, why am I doing this? It's usually after a bad gig, but then you go do a good gig and it just goes away.
Yeah, that's a tough question because there is so many layers to what that could mean. Do I ever get tired of performing stand-up comedy to stand-up audiences? No, never. But last Friday when I'm doing the real estate Oscars, I'm like, man, is this what I want to be doing with my life? And so, yes, but I wasn't really performing, not really. Comedy, not the way I would do it. So that's tough to answer that kind of question.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When you're doing what you do, and you're enjoying it, and it's in the right format. Mm-hmm. And that actually kind of segues pretty nicely into the other question we got on the CMS. I'll just kind of read it for you guys. You were talking about how in some cases you lose control of a gig. Or Luke, you mentioned a couple of times, I'm on the road, I'm talking to someone, and I want to give them some advice about how to make this situation into as good of an experience for everybody as I can. Can we go into maybe 3 things that you'd want a comedian to know who's on the road going into a situation that's an alt room, not a comedy club, and kind of what to look for and say to a showrunner?
Yeah. So, well, this also might be a layered type of question. So there's the type that you can go into where it's like, okay, this is maybe a comedy producer or someone that's newer in comedy that's creating a space for comedy or a show. And then there's the type that I was talking about where it's like, it's somebody's birthday party or this is a Christmas party. And so if we look at those as almost 2 separate things, Christmas party or anything like that, like I say to anybody, tell the people what you need. I need a microphone. You need to provide me a microphone, some sort of amplification. And that sounds like, well, when they provide it, nope. They don't think about that a lot of times. They do not think, I need to provide amplification. I thought you just stand or walk around the room like a street magician. It's like, no, I need to be amplified. I say to them, if you can provide a spotlight or something, that stage area that draws the attention, great. If not, let's go back to number 1. I still need a mic. I need some sort of amplification. I want people to know that I'm supposed to be there. If we're talking about, and I also want, we need to establish what you do and don't want me to say. If you don't want me to talk about politics at all, like don't even say the word, don't even say the president, don't say anything. Okay, because I'll keep it clean, but I also need to know if there's something like that. I also like to know if there is somebody dealing with something in the audience that is obvious to everybody. So do they have a disability of some kind? Is there somebody that just lost a loved one? Like, oh, we all know that Cheryl just lost her husband. Well, let me not do the husband joke to her. Like, I want to know that kind of stuff. An alt venue is a little different because it's more set up like going to be a comedy club, but it's an alt venue, like somebody's independently produced. And I'm like, start the show on time. How many shows I've done where it's been like a producer of something, they go, well, we're going to wait until people arrive. Nope. If it says 8, start at 8, especially if you run like a weekly show or something like that, because what you're going to do is you're going to train them to get there later and later and later. And then you end up, now I'm, as the comic, sitting around for an hour and 15 minutes till you start the show when you told me it was 8, start it on time, have a mic, have spotlights, have everyone sitting in the same direction, seat people together and towards the front rather than just sitting wherever they want. And these are things that seem to comics like us, these are second nature. It's not to these people that put stuff together. Even a newer comic doesn't know that to do this stuff. And all of that psychologically makes a show better. People feel more comfortable if they are grouped together rather than spread apart. They're more likely to laugh and enjoy it and feel less self-conscious if they are in the middle of 20 other people rather than I'm sitting by myself or with my wife over here. So those are just a handful of things. Don't make it a 2 or 3 hour show. No, never. Don't do that. Stop making these shows that last forever. Less is more. Hour and a half for a comedy club type of show. If it's a corporate thing, hour. If it's really set up well. If it's not, if it's just somebody's party, let's keep it short. Keep it 20, 30 minutes max if there's 1 or 2 comics,
All right. Yeah, that does it for the questions, guys.
Yeah.
That's good.
I like that it said keep it short after I give these long answers.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, these were questions that weren't, they're kind of layered where, like you said, you can't just, it's hard. I mean, there's so many things. And even to add on, well, not even to add on, more of an agreement. My biggest thing with that is to tell them to seat the people. That's don't let people pick where to sit. You tell them where to sit, because if you let them pick, they are going to sit all spread out. And like you said, it doesn't make for as a fun comedy show.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
don't know it. They don't know it. They don't know that they're going to have a worse time. They think they're going to have a better time because they think they're safe. And that's the opposite.
Yep, absolutely. There's I'm going to bring this up because it was funny. It's also, why is your background blurred? Are you at an active crime scene?
Sort of. I'm at home and I have a 4-year-old daughter, so it is kind of as close to active crime as you can get without a crime happening.
I love it. JP Martin is a comic from Grand Forks, North Dakota. So, good people there. Good people.
Yeah. I tried to take a gig in North Dakota, and it was like just not enough. There's so many of those gigs where you're like, man, if this was just $200 more, I could make this thing work. Or if I could get another night with this, I could make it work. And there's so many of those gigs where I'm like, it's right on the line where it's like, am I going to make nothing or am I going to make something?
Yeah, just can't do it sometimes. Well, this has been great. Where do you want to direct people? Where can people find you?
So people can find me, comedianluke.com. That's going to have my schedule if you want to go see me live. But also, like I said, you can see me at the Comedy Cellar, at the Fat Black Pussycat every Monday night, the 10:45 Comedians from Seth Meyers show. And then you can also just follow me at Comedian Luke on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the things, TikTok are at Comedian Luke. So you don't even have to remember my last name with all of this stuff. Website is comedianluke.com. You'll be taken care of.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us tonight. This has been so much fun, and you have a good rest of your night.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
All right, Luke.
All right. Well, that was a fantastic episode.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of great information, insight in that episode, especially working some of the corporate type gigs. We call them corporate, and I feel like anything that's not done in a comedy club and or bar situation is just referred to as a corporate, even though they're not always. I guess holiday party's a corporate gig, but it's really kind of its own animal. Birthday parties, the same thing, but either way.
But honestly, that's where a lot of money is to be made for comics.
And that is why we do it.
Exactly. But there's ways that we can make it better than what it is because of all the points that Luke already made. I especially
ask questions. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, kind of doing some discovery work as a comic for sure. And just right quick, I also liked his bombing of bombing answer. Just talks about how that can affect you at different points in your career. That's a pretty nuanced answer to that I've I think I'll remember for a long time. This is great.
Yep. No, it's good not to carry that stuff with you. That's for sure. But sometimes it's not hard. It's not easy to do. I mean, to let them things go. But you got to definitely think about the difference in the kind of comedy you're doing. And because I was the same way. I remember, I could bomb at an open mic and I'd be upset for days. And then, the longer I do it, I'm like, why am I upset? There wasn't an audience. It was other comics that didn't give a crap. Why am I letting this make me sad? This is dumb. Let's move on.
Your confidence tank fills up and you become more resilient to it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been a great episode. Thank you for the people watching and listening and tuning in to the Art of Bombing. We appreciate you guys so much. Couple things before we get out of here. If you want to talk to us, you can go to podinbox.com/artofbombingpod and you can leave voice messages. We haven't had one come in yet because we haven't played one, obviously, but it is there. If you have questions, when we have an upcoming guest, when we announce a guest, you can go to podinbox.com/artofbombingpod and leave a voice message. All you have to do, go to the website, scroll down. You don't have to worry about leaving the tip membership thing. That's just something they do on that site. We don't care about that. We only set up an account there so we can get voice messages. We're not trying to get money out of you on that site. So scroll down to the microphone icon, hit the icon, record your message. If you have a question, ask a question. Maybe you want to give us a verbal review or something and say something nice. That's cool. Or maybe you have a story of a time you bombed and you want to share with us. Maybe we'll play that on a future episode of the podcast. So definitely go check out podinbox.com/artofbombingpod. And then if you do want to contribute financially, you can do that too by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/artofbombingpod. Check us out there if you want. For everything else, go to our website, artofbombingpod.com. We're on all social media at artofbombingpod.com. Or that's our website. At artofbombingpod. There we go. That's what I need to say. Just stop it right there. That has been the episode. We thank you. This is a Blitzed Entertainment and Dead and Mellow production, hosted by me and produced by me, Dan Bublitz Jr. and Josh Shirley. Nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. Our theme song by my good friend John Holt. Stand-up soundbite bumper was provided by Joe Nicola Music, and all our other music and audio was either royalty-free or used with permission. Again, visit us at artofbombingpod.com. You all have a great night.
Come back and see us.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.